Morning. How y'all doing? How's your mom and them? Day's good. And the children are good. Take a breath. So just invite ourselves to be fully present into this moment. I simply give thanks for each and every individual here, for the experience that we are having and for the continued evolution of that experience through this now moment. And so it is. We've been talking all month about stewardship of the planet. It's one of the 10 prophetic justice principles by Reverend Dr. James Forbes. And we've been looking at each of those per month throughout the year. And this month it has been ensuring stewardship of our planet and wrapping that around the principle of love as we've gone. Today we're going to wrap that all up in this package entitled Healing Our Planet and look at the spiritual notion and take that we have within the New Thought tradition of how we approach healing. So that's where we're going. Does that sound all right? And then next month, I'm really excited. Next month, we're talking about humanity. We're extending out of caring for the earth to how we care for each other. And, I'm always several weeks ahead thinking, and things are popping in about what to say about some of those talks and even November and some of the other things we got going on. And I'm excited. So I look forward. I know we got a lot going on. I know you have a lot of choices. I've learned that on Sundays, you got football games and traffic and all kinds of other things. And I know you got stuff coming up with the Pride Festival, and that's good. But we're gonna have some surprises for you here on Pride Weekend. I know a lot of you guys go down there for that, and that's good. But you don't want to miss what we're going to be doing here. How about that? How about that? Gabrielle, 11. Okay, you're just going to have to show up on Pride Weekend and see what happens. How about that? So we've been talking this month about this stewardship idea. We started the month by talking about what happens when we truly understand our relationship with the earth, our relationship which is, and we look through the lens of some of the biblical stories, this idea of dominion and stewardship. And when we really understand what dominion and stewardship is, what we're talking about is what I call the babysitter effect. That there is an infinite intelligence that has brought forward all life and all creation, and it has given you and I as human beings, as conscious awake beings, as a byproduct of what I call 14 million years of stardust evolutionary process taking place, that we have arrived with this consciousness, and the intelligence of the universe has said, I've put you in charge. I've given you dominion or stewardship. And so I call that the babysitter effect, because it's a good metaphor for understanding. When a parent leaves home and brings the babysitter in and says, I've given you dominion over the household. Right? For the time being, while I'm away, you represent me. And a good babysitter will take on that responsibility and do as the parent would do. You following me? Not something else, not their own thing, right? Not their own ideas, not their own, not abuse or manipulate the situation for their own good or for their own selfish needs, but they would do their best to stand in as a steward and a representative of that which has sent them. If you have a babysitter that's not doing that, then you need to get a different babysitter, right? And so we've been given the babysitter role or the stewardship role of the earth. It says, do the infinite intelligence, which is what I call God, the infinite intelligence of the universe, it says, you are my representative. Do as I would do. Don't do your own thing for your own personal gain, your own ideas, your own manipulation, your own abuse. No, I wouldn't do any of that. So if I wouldn't do it, don't do it. Right? So we begin there. We begin there talking about really understanding and shifting our awareness that we've been put in charge of something, and that charge comes with the responsibility to act in a God consciousness of love. Then we talked about how prayer changes things in consciousness. And we're going to talk more about prayer and how we use our affirmative prayer today to step into the role of healing and revealing in our particular tradition. And so we talked about how prayer shifts things. We talked about the principle of the within the particular, we find the universal. So we looked at the particular story of Cain and Abel, and we unpackaged that for a couple of weeks, looking at this this metaphorical, not literal story, but this metaphorical story of humanity moving from nomadic tribe relationships, from hunting and gathering to settling down and establishing kingdoms and establishing cities and establishing villages and establishing an order and the ability to farm and the ability to then, out of farming, create supply and build up and store that supply. And when you do that, then the supply needs to be managed. And when you have that, then it's got to be governed and all of those things. And the Cain and Abel story says, be mindful as you're doing that. The story is not a rebuke of city dwelling or of that life, but it is a warning to say, as you go there, understand that you still have to have this primary relationship with the divine, this primary relationship with the earth, this primary relationship with that which you've come from. Don't lose track or drift too far off, otherwise you will suffer and have to wander and find yourself again. And then we talked about that subversive, dangerous text called the Lord's Prayer. What? Subversive. The Lord's Prayer. If you missed that week, you missed a good one. But let me just tell you. Subversive. Why is the Lord's Prayer subversive? Because when you, in a context and a consciousness of people in which kingdoms are established by individuals, by political powers and principalities, and you come into that and people say, well, how do we pray? Now, the people following Jesus knew how to pray. There's rabbis everywhere. You throw a stick and hit a rabbi. Okay. It is Rosh Hashanah. There we go. That's my nod right there. Right? So understand that their question was not because out of ignorance of how to pray, and the teaching was not, I'm going to teach you how to pray because you don't know how to pray, but it was rather there was a desire to say, how do we keep this relationship in front of us? And into that space, this master teacher, this radical rabbi, this subversive agent of change said, pray like this. Understand that the God you're praying to belongs to everybody. Our Father, an inclusive term, is establishing, we seek to establish a kingdom that is on earth. And that was the first subversive part about it, because if the kingdom is coming from God and not from humanity, not from Pharaoh, not from Caesar, not from Herod, then already the prayer is off to a very radical start. And then out of that place, if the kingdom is going to be established because we have our connection with the oneness of God on earth as it already is in heaven, meaning it's already done in consciousness, we just need to remember it and actually demonstrate it with each other, then when we do that, then there is an exchange of our daily bread. And that's where the prayer really goes off the rails. Because the distribution of bread was the responsibility of the cities and of the governments. And so if Jesus is telling people, you got to pray to be in right relationship with us, and out of that place receive your daily bread, then there is a subtle subtext, a not so subtle subtext in the prayer that says somebody's not doing their job. And it's up for you and I to remember to do our job. You see, one of the byproducts of awakening, spiritual awakening, which is what we're all about, right? One of the byproducts of spiritual awakening is realizing that which we often, in any era, whether we're talking thousands of years ago or we're talking about right now, one of the byproducts of spiritual awakening is realizing that which we often call the political issues of the day are actually fundamentally theological issues. Let me say that again. One of the byproducts of spiritual awakening is realizing that that which we often call the political issues of the day are fundamentally better understood as spiritual issues or theological issues. What do I mean by that? Well, we're talking about the earth today, so let me try to stay in my lane here and just keep it to that. But clean water, clean air, resource management, that these things which we tend to engage in human conversation from a political discourse position are not political topics. They're not political positions. They're not political notions. They are fundamentally spiritual and theological notions. Why? Because that establishment, both within the Lord's Prayer, the establishment of our covenant with the earth through Genesis, the Psalms 24 that says the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And so if we're in right relationship with the divine idea, divine intelligence of infinite wisdom, love, and creativity that is expressing through all life and creation, that is the fullness thereof. It belongs to that divine intelligence. Then when we seek in our ways of human beings' behaviors, when we seek to keep people from those things, when we seek to divide the land, when we seek to take its resources and not be in balance with it, when we seek to pollute the water, when we seek to restrict the water, when we seek to do these things, then what we are doing is, when we're defaming the earth, we're actually defaming God. When we're defaming the resources, we're defaming the divine. We're forgetting the divine in it. And so when we wake up and realize that which we call political are actually fundamentally theological issues, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, when we desecrate the earth, we desecrate God, because we're denying divinity in creation. And so I'm getting in trouble here, but listen. If the religious state has done their job, then those things don't become political issues in the first place. See, it's the job of the church, it's the job of the religious state, it's the job of the spiritual places, no matter what theology you're talking about, it's the job of that awareness, of consciousness, to keep the covenant in front of humanity. To say, remember that all of this is here because of God. All of this is here because it's a divine intelligence. It's in you, it's in me, it's in the land, it's in the water, it's in the air, it's in the trees, it's in the animals. Respect that, know that, remember that. And if the church does its job, then the issues never slip into the political realm to begin with. Because all of the people doing the political things would be embodying a certain love ethic, a certain divine ethic that would come from the multiplicity of their religious experiences. Because this love that I'm talking about, this love ethic of keeping the divinity at the center of our awareness, lives in the Muslim tradition and in the Buddhist tradition and the Jewish tradition and in the Christian tradition and in the Zoroastrian tradition and in all of the traditions of the ages. This divinity is present, and it's constantly reminding us to keep it first. So these things never become politicized. And so it turns out, woo! Jesus, take the wheel. Right here, watch this. It turns out they're not talking about, it's not that the church is talking about political things, it's that the politicians are talking about spiritual things. So when we truly understand our role as prophetic, I'm going to break that down for just a minute because I know that word scares people sometimes. But when we really understand our role as prophetic, it's about reclaiming that which always belonged to us to begin with. So that topic wasn't your domain to begin with. Who gets the water and who doesn't get the water wasn't your domain to begin with. That's God's domain. Who gets to vote and who doesn't get to vote wasn't your dominion to begin with, because we're all created equal in the eyes of the divine. We got to reclaim that which belongs to us. You see, the prophetic is dangerous not because it's about foretelling the future, but because it's about speaking to what's really going on and pulling back the veil and exposing those in power and revealing to them that the power that they have is sourced from false pretenses. Good God. Yeah, so, see, we belong to a prophetic movement. Now, I know some of you say, oh, I've been in this church for 40 years. I never heard of a prophetic movement. Never heard that before. I know. I get it. And what I want to say is, I'm sorry. Because somebody forgot to read what was right in front of them. When Ernest Holmes said that there's a power in the universe greater than you are and you can use it, that's a prophetic statement. Why? Because it's a statement that returns humanity to its authenticity, to its power. When we have a movement that has been ordaining women for over 150 years, long before the Episcopalians ever thought about it, that's a prophetic movement. When you have a movement that was welcoming to people of all backgrounds, that didn't require some salvation or grace or transformation of their soul by some magical ritual to come in the door, that's a prophetic movement. When you have a movement that welcomed people from all cultural backgrounds and never had a barrier to any of that, that's a prophetic movement. In the face of traditions that had all of these barriers and gates and things that you had to go through. So we've belonged to something for a long time that has woken people up, because we belong to a prophetic movement because we dare to wake people up to their power and their potential. You see. And so one of the things I'm grateful for is that what's happening right now is that there's a great awakening taking place in humanity. Last week we talked about awakening. We talked about the wonderful story, the old turtle and the forgotten truth. The broken truth. If you don't know that story, I encourage you to go out and get it. Many of you did. So if you have grandchildren, nieces, nephews, etc., wonderful story to have in your library. And one of the things I'm grateful for is that this prophetic awakening that is taking place in the planet right now. Right, the prophetic doesn't belong to any religious tradition. It's something that belongs to the divinity within all of us. And so because the church has failed over and over and over again to awaken that in a dramatic way, humanity is saying, all right, we'll do it ourselves. And the divine is saying, I can use this young girl right here. I can use this girl named Greta. I can use this girl over here. I can use this individual over here. I can use any open channel that is awake and aware to being a reminder of the power that we have. You see? And so one of the things I'm grateful for is in this awakening, as we're beginning through Greta, for example, as we're getting exposed to many of the other young people that have been activists for a long time. And some of those are beginning to come to light now and being shared. One of them, a Native American young lady, Winona Lakuta, and she said this. Now listen to this. You want to talk about a prophetic statement. I talk a lot about the prophets in the Old Testament because of how they speak power, truth to power, and listen to this in our day and age. She says, someone needs to explain to me why asking for clean water makes you an activist. And at the same time, someone needs to explain to me how destroying water with chemical warfare doesn't make a corporation an environmental terrorist. Listen to it again. Someone needs to explain to me why asking for clean water makes you an activist, and how destroying water with chemical warfare doesn't make a corporation an environmental terrorist. See, the prophetic is dangerous because it awakens the power that we have within us. I know you know this. When we understand that what was the phrase? All of the power to all of the people. All of the power to all of the people, right? And so we are the place where God is waking up. Ernest Holmes says, every day and every hour we are meeting the eternal realities of life. In such degree as we cooperate with these eternal realities in love, in peace and wisdom and joy, believing and receiving, we are automatically blessed. Our prayer is answered before it is uttered. Every day and every hour we are meeting the eternal realities of life. In such degree as we cooperate with these eternal realities in love and peace and wisdom and in joy, believing and receiving, we are automatically blessed. And so you and I are the place where God is waking up to its divinity. You and I are the place where God is waking up to its connection to the earth. You and I are the place where God is remembering where it belongs in the social order of things. You and I are the place where God is taking back its power away from the politicians who have sought to usurp it and divide it and qualify it and quantify it and to establish it back into the allness of humanity. And so we see millions and millions of people marching in the streets because that's where the power belongs. All of the power to all of the people. Go ahead and yes. We need a spiritual and moral awakening, and it's happening now. We're in the midst of it right now. Go ahead and just take a breath. Say, I am the place where God is waking up. I am the place where God is waking up. Turn to somebody and say, it's about time. It's about time you woke up. Go ahead. Go ahead, tell your neighbor. Say, neighbor, you are the place where God is waking up. And it's about time. Yes? All right. Back of you, Holmes says, Ernest Holmes says, back of you, the infinite burst into manifestations through you, as you, what you are. It is you. You don't have to be ashamed of it. You don't have to say, I despise my personality. I hate this body. I'm a worm of the dust. And think that you are surrendering to God. This is blasphemy, he says. It is a denial of God. All we have to say is, there is nothing in me but God. There is nothing in me but God. And if there's nothing in me but God, then there's nothing expressing through me but that consciousness of God. And there's nothing in you but God. And there's nothing in us but God. And so let's get back to remembering who and what we are. And so we believe in a universal power, which is God, which operates through a universal mind, which is the law of God, that we are surrounded by this creative intelligence, which receives the direct impress of our thoughts and responds to it. And so we have a form of prayer that is an activating spiritual mind treatment, a prophetic form of prayer, if you will. It is an affirmative prayer that says at its basis, in its understanding of what healing is, it says there's nothing to heal, there's only something to reveal. There's nothing to heal, there's only something to reveal. And if there's nothing to heal, then how do we go about healing the planet? Let me just pause on that for just a minute. Thich Nhat Hanh says, the world is not a problem to be solved. It is a living being to which we belong. The world is part of our own self, and we are part of its suffering wholeness. Until we go to the root of our image of separation, there can be no healing. And the deepest part of our separateness from creation lies in our forgetfulness of its sacred nature, which is also our own sacred nature. Let me say it again. The world is not a problem to be solved. It is a living being to which we belong. The world is part of our own self, and we are part of its suffering wholeness. Until we go to the root of our image of separateness, there can be no healing. And the deepest part of our separateness from creation lies in our forgetfulness of its sacred nature, which is also our own sacred nature. And so if we say that there is nothing to be healed, only a truth to be revealed, then what is the truth that needs to be revealed about our planet? What is the truth that we would speak into a prayer? Would we do it and would we approach it just as we would a friend or a congregant or the country? And would we say in our affirmative prayer that the earth is whole and perfect and complete and a manifestation of the divinity of God, and if we follow that dictum to its end, then we move our feet in response to the prayer, because we believe in a prayer that changes things. We believe in a prayer that moves form. A prayer is a thought, and it moves form. Form follows function. The function is established by the mind. And so if the prayer is that the earth is whole, perfect, and complete, then that moves our form to act in accordance with it. And so behavior changes because the thought of wholeness is established in our consciousness. And so we reveal the whole planet. We reveal wholeness by waking up to it. We reveal wholeness in our body by waking up to it. We reveal wholeness in the planet by waking up to it. And so here's a process for waking up to wholeness. 5 parts. E, eco-friendly. Learn what to do that is the healthiest for the earth in the same way that we would ideally want to do for our own body temples. Learn to read, research, ask people, get more informed about what is most effective in living an eco-friendly life. E for eco-friendly. A for awake. The time of using and abusing our natural resources as though there is no repercussion has ended, and the age of accountability has woken up. It's woken up in humanity. The children are inviting us to remember, and we must carry that voice into the world. We must be awake to what we're doing, awake to the choices that we're making, awake to the opportunities and the resources that are available to us. E for eco-friendly, A for awake, R for respectful. Do you see where I'm going here? Respectful. How do we demonstrate respect to our parents, to a friend, to a diplomat, to a stranger? How do we show respect? How do we translate that respect to the earth? Is it by recycling? Is it by planting trees? Is it by using less water to wash the car, do the laundry? There are many ways that we can show respect and be in that awakened state. We're going to do some good things this coming year with trees. Trees have been all over our vision. I can't say more than that now, but it's been all over our vision for our 40th birthday. We're going to do some things with trees in this community. Amen? We're going to do some things with trees. Tender, T for tender. So we are eco-friendly, awake, respectful, tender, showing gentleness and concern, remembering First Peoples, Native Americans, the indigenous, that have come before us, that have given us this land that in many places didn't give us this land. We took it from them. And so every time we walk on the land, every time we gather in a place, our first prayer ought to be thank you to the ancient energies of the animals and first indigenous people that have called this place sacred and holy long before we ever got here, long before a building went up or a parking lot went down. This belonged to something else, and we give honor and praise to that. And so we respectful and tenderly remember, let us walk softly on the earth with all living beings, great and small, remembering that as we go, one God and one kingdom creates us all. And finally, holy. You see how these all lead into each other. They're really variations of the same thing. Holy, being aware of our divinity, inviting us to be more in a sacred, peaceful, divine manner as we walk, knowing that what we are connected to all people and all things, that as we do this, we evoke a higher level of love, respect, and honoring from God. Earth, as we walk with the earth in an eco-friendly, awake, respectful, tender, and holy way. As we carry our prayer, which says there's nothing to be healed, only something to be revealed, and so it's revealed in us. The stewardship is revealed in us. The respect for the earth is revealed in us. The tenderness is revealed in us. The creativity and the ingenuity to find the resources and the ways and the means to feed the people and to clean the water and to pick up the plastic from the ocean and to do it all comes through us because it's being revealed in us, and there's an infinite wisdom behind us, as you're following what I'm saying. I'll close with this. Chief Seattle said in 1851, "You must teach your children that the ground beneath their feet is the ashes of our grandfathers and our grandmothers, so that they will respect the land. Tell your children that the earth is rich with the lives of our kin. Teach your children that which we have taught our children, that the earth is our mother. Whatever befalls the earth befalls the son of earth. We must know the earth does belong to man, and man does belong to earth. This we know because all things are connected." And so with that, we move into prayer. I invite practitioners to stand and to move into a place around the room in which your consciousness may envelop and connect with those near you. And we create a web of connection, of deeper understanding of this moment, and a collective power and wisdom that wherever two or more are gathered together, there in the midst am I, a divine presence and intelligence, a wisdom. And so into this space, we take a breath. And we speak this word affirmatively, declaring that what we know is that there is a divine intelligence in the earth, a divine wisdom, a divine insight, a divine power, an infinite capacity of love and creativity and wholeness. And this is the energy that seeks to express itself in, through, and as you and as me. It's revealing itself in the fauna and the flowers and in the air and in the atmosphere of every living thing, the ground beneath our feet and the air that we breathe and the water that we drink. Oh, we remember this divine presence. We see the expression of divinity in all things. We are connected. The ground that we walk on, the air that we breathe. Earth is living in me, and I am living in earth. God is living in me, and I am living in God. These things are all one. So we give thanks for this sacred relationship and this divine remembering as we reveal the ingenuity, the compassion, the loving tenderness, the creativity to be in relationship with this earth in a way that honors our resources, that brings forward more creativity for dealing with our own waste and byproducts, and allows us to be in relationship in a way that is dynamic and good. Oh, there is nothing lost outside of the allness of God. So everything is possible because there's nothing to be healed, only something to be revealed. So let the wholeness of the planet be revealed now. Let it be revealed in my actions, in my beings, in my choices, in my ways. And let it be revealed in the voices of the young and the old who take to the streets to remind the politicians of the world and the governments and principalities that this issue never belonged in your domain in the first place. This is humanity's issue. This is a spiritual issue. This is a God issue. And we take it back. We take back the divine governance that is our birthright, sacred responsibility that we have to be stewards of the earth. And we say, it moves through me as it moves through you, as it moves through all. For this and so much more, I'm truly grateful and thankful in this day. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So it is. Peace and blessings.